We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callTW.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Well, that was weird. Hey, everybody, how you doing? We are live. I'm Matt. Joining me this week, Jenna Belk. How are you?
Actually pretty good. Thanks.
You're
How
all
are you?
smiley and happy. We should all be happy. It's Sunday, and that means there's a new episode of the Atheist Experience. We'll get to a bunch of other stuff. So how you doing, Jenna?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm loving parenting, honestly. That's like all that fills my brain right now. I'm loving it.
Yes, for the people who are watching us live, you missed it because before the show, we actually got to look at baby and have all kinds of fun stuff. This is the Atheist Experience, the live call-in show broadcast out of Austin, Texas. However, that's just kind of superfluous now because not everybody involved with this. I mean, most of the people involved are like outside Austin. You and I are here in Austin, but some of our other co-hosts aren't even in the United States. How can you do that? But for those of you who are watching us live, we greatly appreciate it. If you go look at YouTube, directly below the chat, there'll be a link there to donate. You can donate there. 100% of your contributions go to the Atheist Community of Austin. Google and YouTube don't take any part of it. You can also support the ACA and the Atheist Experience Network, which is kind of one of the same, by collecting your own merchandise. And there's a website where you can get your merchandise requirements there, tiny.cc/merchaca, coffee cups and t-shirts and other things like that. You can become a member on YouTube as well. And the membership not only gets you nifty little emotes and stuff, but you can get out of slow mode. And believe me, we go into slow mode quite frequently. But there's that option. And you can go to patreon.com/the Atheist Experience to find out how to support us in that way. But for those who are interested in participating and not just contributing financially, or maybe you can't, and that's fine, we have a couple Facebook pages that we like to direct people to, and that's the Atheist Experience fan group. That's right there is AXPFG. And then there's the Atheist Experience private fan group, which is AXPPFG. And after the program's over, Jenna will be in the unofficial ACA Discord, but you can go there anytime and find people that you can have conversations with, communicate with, have questions. So that if you're one of those many people, I think one of the most common things we've heard over the 16 plus years I've been doing this is we'll hear from somebody who says, I'm the only atheist in my town, which is absolutely not true, unless you're like one of only 12 people in your town. But by and large, if you're really reaching to find other people to engage with, there are people on the Discord. If you're struggling with things, if you have questions, they're all there to have those conversations. And it is a little virtual community, which is great in times like, right now, where we can't really get together as much as we'd like in the ways that we'd like. So,
Yeah, at least you have a community somewhere.
let's see if we got we have other callers here waiting. Mohammed in is it Nebraska? Welcome to the show. How can we help?
Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
All right.
How are you?
All right. I'm doing pretty good myself.
It says here you're a
So,
polytheist and you
I-
wanted to make a scientific case for the existence of gods. I'm happy to do that. I just want to remind you and everybody else that because we're doing everything over the internet, there's a slight delay and I may need to interrupt and pause, but please tell us what you wanted to tell us.
All right. So I do have an actual definition or criteria of what a god is, but before I do that, I want to lay out just my personal basic beliefs on the behavior about the nature of gods. So personally,
wait.
I do not
I'm already
believe.
confused. Go ahead, Jenna.
Well, I was just going to ask. So instead of telling us what a God is, you're just going to start with telling us why you believe in a God?
No, no, not like my basic beliefs about the nature of them.
Would it be all right with you if you start with the definition?
All right. So my definition would be any entity which possesses a cognitive capacity or nature or / celestial influence beyond the comprehension of a modern sapient human. The clearest example would probably be a technological singularity. And I do have some clarifications on the words I use in that definition if you want to hear them.
Okay, I tried to take notes, but it was a lot real quick. You're saying any entity with a cognitive capacity, nature beyond modern humans. So why would
beyond comprehension?
I'm sorry. So go through your definition of God one more time so I can make sure I get it all.
So it would be any entity which possesses a cognitive capacity / nature or celestial influence beyond the comprehension of modern humans. And the clearest example would be a technological singularity.
But it could be aliens, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm curious, man. This is really strange because I don't necessarily know what you mean by celestial influence, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the.
But hang on. But when you say it has a cognitive capacity or nature and celestial influence beyond the comprehension of modern humans, aren't you a modern human?
Yeah. So
you're saying God is something you cannot comprehend.
Not really. Not if I wanted, unless I wanted to go.
Then how could we possibly have a discussion about something that you say you can't comprehend? How would you possibly know whether or not such a thing exists? But I'll let you keep going. It's just, this is a rather persnickety definition of a God, but let's see where you go.
Thanks for your honesty, though.
All right.
For real.
So I'm gonna make some clarifications on the vocabulary used in that definition. So when I say celestial, I'm referring to the literal real world in the same way that people refer to the earth or the moon or the sun as celestial objects. So any entity or entities or any entity that would be able to influence them in a very significant way, I think would help count towards a God.
Can
when I say comprehension?
That's not. Go ahead.
So when I say comprehension, I mean it can be accurately imagined to a very significant extent. Kind of in the same way that you and I may be able to comprehend the distance of 1 foot, but you and I wouldn't be able to comprehend 1 light year. Those distances are just
I can comprehend a light year. It's the distance that light travels in 1 year.
I guess I probably should have used a different word. I mean, like I can comprehend like the I guess meaning or what it means, but actually,
okay, let's go with what you have so far, because what you've got to find so far is a God who has some kind of cognitive capacity and who can influence celestial bodies, like could move planets, evidently. So go ahead. What's your proof that these kind of things exist?
I actually have a few more clarifications I want to make.
Well, I don't have all day.
Oh, sorry.
So let's present an argument for this God. And some evidence would be great too.
I can't exactly prove that they exist, because if I had the evidence that they did exist, then you would by de facto also know, because they aren't really, you can't miss them.
Muhammad, it says here that you want to make a scientific case for the existence of gods. Can you do that or not?
Yeah.
Then let's do it.
Well, yes. All right. So one of the gods that I have identified myself would be life in and of itself, like the
Is
entire
this a scientific
biosphere of Earth.
argument?
Okay. So Jenna
Um,
has a question, and then I'm going to need a clarification.
Well,
all
I
right.
mean, what is it? What is a scientific case, Mohammed?
So it kind of all boils down to the criteria. If you agree with that, something like that would be a god,
Yeah,
or could be, which should be, or is deserving of the definition of a god.
yeah. Here's the problem: the thing that you just described, the thing that you just declared, you said one of the gods is life. Well, life doesn't have a cognitive capacity in and of itself. It's not an entity in and of itself. Life is a description we use for things that are alive, and not all
Yeah,
things that are alive.
that's
Not
fine.
all, and not all things that are alive have cognitive capacity beyond the comprehension of modern human beings, and not all things that are alive, and I'm not aware of too many things that are alive, have celestial influence. So you've already started off by you have not presented an argument or evidence. You defined a god using a bunch of terms. And then when I asked you to present your scientific case, you begin with one of the gods that you tie yourself to is life. Well, that's not a god. It doesn't even fit your definition. And that's not an argument or evidence. Do you have argument or evidence? Because that's how science works.
I want to say because I haven't really gone through all of what I wanted to go through.
Okay,
but
try and understand this from
the reason I would say,
Mohammed. Pause.
The
Try to understand this from our point of view. Jenna and I are sitting here doing a call-in show. We have a bunch of people who are on hold who'd like to make their case for something. I'm told that you can present a scientific case for the existence of gods. Now, we've been at this for 7 minutes, and there hasn't even been a single premise. There hasn't been any bit of evidence. And when asked if you can present a scientific argument for the existence of God, you don't even seem to know what one is. So can we get to the argument?
all right. So the reason I would say life in and of itself is a god, or my personal reasons, is because of the things that we are capable of as living creatures.
So,
like
okay. So when
we have,
hold on, Mohammed, please. There's a definitional, miscommunication, I think, right now, because Matt is asking for a logical argument, meaning with structure, with research, with specific meaning with each part of it. And I think that Mohammed is interpreting arguments to mean like a case, like a point that you're trying to prove, rather than using structure. Am I correct, Mohammed?
I think so. I might have used the wrong wording.
Well, the problem here is that the wording that you did use after I went through this several times is you said, quote, the reason I would say life in and of itself is a god is because of the things we are capable of. Well, I didn't ask why you thought life was a god, but even under your own definition that you gave for God, life doesn't qualify. Life is the word we use for things that are living, and not everything that's living comes close to meeting your definition of God. And I don't think you can point to anything that's actually living that truly has celestial influence beyond the comprehension of modern humans. Can you point to anything that has anything real that has a cognitive capacity beyond modern humans? Because if you're arguing for life being a god, and your definition of God is a cognitive capacity beyond modern humans, do you have some evidence of a cognitive capacity beyond modern humans in life?
Yeah. So I kind of consider the entire biosphere to be one singular organism in a way.
I no longer care. I no longer care, because that's not what the truth is. The entirety of life is not a singular organism. And even if it were, the question that I asked you is if you had an example of anything in life that had cognitive capacity beyond modern humans. Do you?
Well, when I say modern humans, I'm referring to us as individuals.
Do you have evidence of any? Why is this so difficult, Mohammed? I'm gonna calm down for a second. I'm asking you a very specific question. Do you have evidence where you can point to anything with cognitive capacity beyond the comprehension of modern humans?
So yeah, like a technological singularity, which
Okay.
we ourselves are coming somewhere close to be able to create ourselves.
No,
Sorry.
a technological singularity,
see.
you would have to go through and give your definition. That's not life. There's no demonstration of cognitive capacity at all. And that wouldn't qualify as a god. There's
So Mohammed, can I
Go
ask you a
ahead.
question? It
Yeah.
sounds to me like you have spent a lot of time going through and making sure that you're very, very specific with your words and your definition based off of how things appear to you, what makes you feel like that's what you believe. Does that sound somewhat accurate?
Yeah. So I mean, I can't
Well,
really.
hold on. Let me
I can't-
finish. Can I ask that instead of actually, Matt, you're probably the better person to do this. To tell him where to go from here.
So the thing is, he says one of the gods is life. Then when asked questions about things that are life, he comes back with technological singularity. Muhammad, would you agree that that a technological singularity is a hypothetical?
Yeah, it's just a
Then
concept.
we're done here, because you don't even the thing you tried to point to after the second or third attempt to give you time to present your case, you agree is hypothetical, which means you could not present anything that even met your own definitions. I'm going to say we're going to move on to another caller. You should go off and think about this some more, refine your definition, and learn what an argument is and what a scientific case for something is.
I think that's actually the most important part. Not to go and just think about it some more, because I think that's probably something you've done a lot of, is thinking about it. Maybe start with learning how to actually research, and then use that to learn more about your definition on your own, and then come back. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Thank you
Cool.
so much for working with us.
Thank you. Yeah, the problem here is that technological singularity is a hypothetical thing. So even if you believed that we're getting closer and closer to a singularity, I don't know how you demonstrate that, but I don't know how you could demonstrate that something that we haven't achieved yet is a god, and that there's something that we have not achieved yet, which is the result of our efforts, not only is a god, therefore there are many gods, because Muhammad's case was that he's a polytheist. And
I can
there are many
kind of.
gods.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought
No, you're fine.
I can kind of understand his perspective, because I looked at the world in the same way, and whenever felt more magical or superior was obvious that it was. And so when I think about like AI and the way that it's presented to our society, all the movies about AI taking over the world and everything, it's been personified. And so I can see how, in the eyes, or at least in my old eyes, from my old perspective, I could see how I could look at it and be like, oh, that's obviously like another dimension or another realm, and we're just kind of just getting access to it, and just kind of filling in the blanks with whatever felt right. And so that's why I think that it's really important that that's the only reason that I specified, to not ask him to just go and think about it some more, because I think he has. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of it kind of gets back to the definition and this, but I mean, if I appreciate the fact that somebody's, I always appreciate the fact that somebody's going to call in, but if you call in and tell the call screener, I'm a polytheist and I can present scientific evidence or scientific argument for gods, and then you've got a very particular definition of God, which you then fail to meet the definition of God with the examples you're presenting. At this point, we've got a hypothetical. At some point in the future, maybe we reach a technological singularity. I'm not convinced that would be a god. And even if it were a god, that means we don't have a god yet, or you haven't demonstrated a god yet. So.
Right. I mean, it's something I used to say all the time, was just because I can't prove it doesn't mean it's not true.
Yep.
So.
And a recommendation for Muhammad and everybody else is this. I know we mentioned the Facebook pages that we like to promote. There's another Facebook page we like to promote, which is the Atheist versus Theist debate group. That's at AXP Fan Debates. You can go there. Muhammad can go there. And maybe the people there will help you refine your definitions and refine your arguments so that you can call in and present a better case for it.
Mhm.
In addition, we're the Atheist Experience, but and I know earlier in the day there were, Dan and Lloyd were on Talk Heath and taking calls, but the flagship show of the atheist community of Austin, the Nonprofits, airs in between those two shows, and some of you probably didn't even recognize it or know about it. That's Sundays at 3 p.m. with all new hosts and all new segments. And if you didn't know about that, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcast. It's your one-stop shop for all of the Atheist Experience Network content, and you can get there everything in podcast form. It's amazing. And as always, the reason that you can do that is because of these people who were working behind the scenes to make sure that this show could be on today and that the other shows could be on earlier today. It's fabulous to have a wonderful crew who, screens calls, does the video, does the audio, help me fix my green screen little issue earlier and everything else.
I got on there and I was like, how is everybody? Oh, wait, y'all actually have to work.
So I've got Tommy in Illinois has a question for us. Tommy, welcome to the show. How can we help?
Hello, Matt and Jenna.
Hello. That was a bell.
Wow.
That was my joke, Jenna Bell. Jenna Bell. I think when people say your last name, angels get their wings, right?
Except your last name's Belk with a K.
Oh, is it Belk? I thought it was Belk.
It's literally on the screen every time she's on the screen. So you set up an entire joke based on.
Oh, it's
what you
okay.
heard. Okay. I think it's still funny, but.
It sounds like Bell. I get that a lot. It's fine.
This is one of the disadvantages of being blind. I've never seen your show. I don't know what's on your screen. I only listen to you guys, so.
Well, we're glad you listen. And the Bell thing is, like I said, still funny. But what it means is that we need to do a better job of enunciating for people who aren't sighted.
Well, now we all know it's Belk, so no one will make that mistake again.
I'm sure they will. What's going on, Tommy?
How can we do this, Tommy?
So, hey, I have a question for both of you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You were both theists at one point. You both believed in God, the Christian God.
Yes.
And then you, in your search for God, you couldn't find sufficient evidence to support your belief, and therefore, by default, had to move to atheism because you're still awaiting for evidence. And I'm wondering, as I had the same experience, and thank you, Ken Ham, for doing that for me, because the more he spoke, the more I became unconvinced. If you're still in that search mode, I shouldn't say search mode, or that hope mode, and I can only speak from my own experience, so let me start there, and hopefully that will frame the question a little more. For myself, I am 99.9999% certain there is no God, as has been described in any of the religious texts that I have been exposed to, such as the Bible and the Quran and the Book of Mormon and Mishishkapo and so on.
Cool.
Shango,
That's probably more confident than I
am. Okay, so there's my point. So there's that percentage of non-confidence, right? Because we can't be 100% of anything, really. So would you say that you're still open to evidence? If the evidence appeared, you would say, okay, this is definite evidence. Are you still driven by, poorly formulated question here, are you still driven by that small percentage of possible? It's possible. Even though I just can't see how it's possible, it could still be possible because I can't, my limitations cannot define reality. Let's put it that way. Just because I can't see how something can be doesn't mean it cannot be. It just means I cannot see it.
Is your question, do we still hope to find a God?
Not so much hope, but do you still consider yourself searching in your atheism?
Yes.
We literally do
Is
a
your
call-in
atheism-
show almost every week, asking for people to present
Okay.
what they believe and why. I fail to see what more I could
Well-
do to demonstrate that I'm still open to having evidence presented.
Well, that doesn't necessarily need to be evidence of a search. That could just be evidence of having a show and providing a service to other people who are searching. That
So,
might not need to speak directly to your belief.
do you know how you get on this show?
How I got on the show?
Do you know how a person gets on a show such as the Atheist Experience?
As a host or as a
Yes, as a
calling?
front-facing host.
As a host? No, I don't know your host process.
Neither do I. But the fact is that if I was no longer sincere in my questions, if I was not being honest, I don't believe that I would still have a place
Right.
on this show.
Nobody would. Because the type of person who's not open to that is someone who says, I'm 100% convinced that no God exists. You guys are all wrong. My reason for doing this is to expose that you're wrong. Basically, if God is ultimately unfalsifiable, then anyone who claims to have falsified the unfalsifiable is as ridiculous, if not more so, than the people who have claimed to have found a God. At least those people just have bought into bad evidence or fallacies, so far as we can tell. But if you claim that you've falsified the unfalsifiable, you are wholly irrational. Do I think it's likely that I'm going to get good evidence for a God? No. Do I hope that I do? No, because I kind of hope there's not a God based on what I've heard about various gods and things like that. But if someone had good evidence, that's what skepticism is, which is why the people on this show don't say, oh, well, we've disproved God. Nobody's ever said anything like that. Every week it's call and tell us, and you have legitimate conversations with the people who can, and you move on from the people who can't.
And there's been a lot of conversations with people who have called to say that there is, in fact, no God, and that's been disputed as well.
Well, yes, as you said, you cannot falsify such a position.
Right, but my point is that the position that we're taking, which is a skeptic position about it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think you get where we're going.
Okay.
Correct.
So it would seem like, if I understand you correctly, I'm just recapping to make sure I get this correctly. You're both still open to the idea of a God, and that your atheism is not an endpoint. It
No.
is a step in your journey.
Yes, for me.
And not only that,
which-
but over the
which-
years, I've argued that atheism, in the sense of not being convinced that God exists, is the default position, because the burden of proof is on those who are claiming a God. This wasn't it's not like I started off as a Christian and graduated to atheism. I started off as an atheist, just like everybody else, in the loosest sense, not in how it's used in activism and stuff. But I started off not being convinced that God exists. Someone convinced me that God exists, and then later I found out I was convinced for bad reasons, so I could not continue it. It's not like I chose atheism. It's not like I said, well, I'm done with that God thing now. At some point I was convinced. Now I'm no longer convinced.
No.
I'm open to being convinced
wouldn't-
again if somebody has evidence and argument.
Yeah, you've thrown your wool down on the floor, so to speak, and you're saying, God, either make it wet or dry.
Well, I haven't. All right. So how can we help?
You're looking
What's the question we're trying to get to?
That was it. I was just looking to see if your atheism was part of your. Well, I'm confirming for myself through conversation with you if your atheism is an extension of your journey of looking for God, and if it wasn't just a termination point, so to speak, that.
Can I ask why that matters?
Because I see myself the same. I see myself in that venue, that I believed in God, and the more I looked for evidence, because I wanted to believe something real. I didn't want to believe a fantasy. So I was asking and searching, reveal yourself, make yourself known. And it just wouldn't happen. The more I searched, the more I realized it just wasn't going to happen. And I said to myself, and I said to the God that I was departing from, that, hey, you are not making yourself known. There's nothing I can do to affect this. That's evident to me. You have to find me. And if you can't find me, then you just don't exist.
Well, that's a fallacy.
Yeah. So I gotta.
It's
yes.
fallacious.
You don't
It's
exist.
it's fallacious for you. It's fallacious for you to conclude that God doesn't exist just because God didn't answer your prayer.
Right. So that's what I was going to single out, was that you said that you're not going to believe it. Hold on. No. I'm commenting on something that you had already said,
Go ahead.
which adds on to Matt's point. It's okay. It's all right. Just stop talking. It's okay. Basically, you've said that you're not going to be convinced, or you're not going to find it. And that kind of brings me to, just to give you an example, I got a tattoo of a cross because that's the one thing about me that was never going to change. And now I've learned my lesson from that, because I don't know what's going to change about me at all. I don't know. So I can't say.
And I'm genuinely baffled at how someone could be a frequent listener to the show and be asking the question that you're asking. Like, hey, are you guys still open to having evidence presented? Like, I don't know how anybody could be a regular listener to the show, or have listened many times to hear us talk about skepticism, burden of proof, nature of evidence, all of these things, and then be like, oh, are you guys still open to having evidence presented for God? That's literally what we do here every week.
Well, I binge listened to probably 100 of your shows over the last month. I found you guys about a month ago. And I binge listened to you, and I've listened to, about 100 shows at this point.
Is there anything else that we can answer for you?
No. Other than I just want to clarify, when I said you don't exist, there's more to that thought. It's either you don't exist or you're being a dick.
Sure, but okay. As I've said many times before, if there is a God, either that God doesn't want me to know it exists, or if it does, it doesn't want me to know it exists yet, or it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But
okay, so that's the same position I have. I didn't express it as thus.
But it's all of this seems a little strange. I don't know. I'm not going to keep going over how strange it is. Hopefully we answered your question, Tommy. I'm moving on to some other calls.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's fine.
Tommy.
Okay. Thank you.
Happy for you.
Bye, Jenna Belk.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll also try to stop just default assuming that anybody that I talk to is necessarily sighted, which was an oversight. Aha, pun on my part. All right, where are we gonna go? This one's. Oh, I don't understand this at all, but let's try. Robin in DC, welcome to the show. How can we help? Well, you had a question for us about being global atheists or local atheists?
Interesting.
Yeah, you guys are familiar with those terms. I'm assuming.
Nope. I've been hosting this show for 16 plus years. Atheism, as I use the term, is simply not being convinced that a God exists. How are you using it? Because I know about hard and soft atheism, weak and strong atheism, maybe global and locals like that.
Yeah, it's tied into basically very similar to what it means to be like a hard or soft atheist. So when I say global atheist, I'm saying that they deny the existence of all gods, and local atheist means that they deny a subset of gods. So, for example, I would be a local atheist in the sense that I would deny certain gods, but I'm not a global atheist. Okay?
How do you tell the difference?
So, how do you tell? Well, you ask somebody, and you see. And by the way,
asking
when I say
you.
God, I'm referring to.
But I just asked you.
Oh well, I'm a local.
And I don't see though. Okay, I asked you, how do you tell the difference between the gods that are real and the gods that aren't? And you said you ask somebody and you'll see. I asked you and I don't see.
Oh, okay. No. I thought you meant how do I know if somebody is a global or a local atheist?
No, sorry.
So
How do you tell the
okay,
difference
yeah,
between the
I know.
ones that are real and the ones that aren't real?
Revelation.
What does that mean?
Well, revelation is necessarily first person.
God
and
has revealed himself.
Yeah, but if
So-
God's
so
revealed
God-
himself
God
to like
revealed
you, that doesn't do the rest of us any good. So I'm a global atheist in that I am not. Well, so first of all, your definitions of deny the existence of is something that needs to be teased out, because I'm not convinced of the existence of any God, including any God I haven't heard of.
Okay. When I say God, by the way, okay, I'm referring to, just to make sure, before you say you're a global atheist, I want to make sure that what I mean when I say God. God is referring to the mind that is the reason why all things are, can be, and cannot be. So are you denying? And when I say deny, I'm saying you affirm the non-existence of such a being.
No, I'm not affirming the non-existence. I'm denying that the existence of such a being has been demonstrated. And when you say the mind that is responsible for existence, I'm not convinced that there is such a mind, or that a mind is the answer. So basically you've defined God in such a way where it is conflating two propositions. As a necessary being for the nature of existence. And I'm not convinced that that's true. So me not being convinced is not me saying there is no such thing.
In addition to that, Robin, this is not a call-in show where you call and ask us to explain our disbelief. This is a call-in show where you call us and tell us what you believe and why. And I'm just curious why you're dodging the whole how do you tell the difference between the real ones and the fake ones, because that's the only thing that I'm really curious about at this point.
I didn't dodge the question. I gave a quick answer, but then I think Matt asked a question. I don't remember exactly what happened.
You summarized it to one word, assuming that would mean something to me, and it does not.
Okay, so revelation, are things that indicate the existence of God. Okay,
I'm not asking for you to define revelation. I'm asking you to tell me how you tell the difference between the real ones and the fake ones.
The way I know anything is by God's revelation. So the Bible, for example.
That's not true.
God
didn't reveal
you either.
God didn't reveal to you this show, the phone number to call this show, didn't reveal to you Jenna's name. That was revealed to you by us. And revelation isn't necessarily from God. I can reveal plenty of things to you, which I would do if you'd stop trying to interrupt while I'm in mid-sentence. While I'm in mid-sentence, Robin, it's very good if you stop talking.
I want to make sure you're not misrepresenting what I say when I say revelation.
I'm asking you.
There are multiple.
Robin.
Well, that's why I'm trying to.
Robin, I'm going to put you on mute because you literally said that revelation is always from God, and I said that's not the case. I can reveal things.
Yeah, but I didn't clarify what I meant. Right?
Well, that's not my fault, is it? Does that mean I was wrong just because you didn't clarify?
You started by because you started making a point about how God didn't reveal something when I didn't finish clarifying what I meant by revelation.
Tell you what.
Because you instead of answering my question of how you can tell the difference, you decided to trail off onto how you generally tell the difference between other things. And Matt was trying to make a point about how that's not true, first of all, because you don't. Okay, you know what?
I've muted Robin, and Robin, I want you to listen because nobody's going to hear you for a second, and then I'm going to unmute you, and we'll start over because I genuinely would like to get to some kind of point. Jenna wanted to know how to tell the difference between real gods and fake gods, or how to determine if a proposed God is real. And you said revelation, and then you went on about how revelation is necessarily from God. You also defined God as that mind which is responsible for everything, which is an assertion that is not in any way demonstrated. So let's back up for a second and let's start here. How would you tell the difference between a proposed God that is real and one that is not real?
Since that is the position that you take.
I would know. Yes. So to answer the question, I would know which God is real if he revealed himself in some way or fashion. That's
How
the
do you
only way
tell?
know that God exists. Correct?
How do you tell that it's actually a revelation from God and not just your brain doing something?
So, okay. So the revelation I'm referring to, okay, there's multiple different types. So one type that I
No,
mentioned
the one that you're referring
is the
to.
Bible.
We want to know the one that you're
No,
referring to.
I'm referring. I'm referring to multiple different types of revelation. Okay, I don't only take one
Okay.
type of revelation. I take multiple different types. So to get a fuller picture, I want to be able to explain what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Okay, so one type of revelation is categorized as special revelation, and that is the Bible or God's direct communication to people. And this revelation, again,
No, sir. Robin,
inerrant.
Robin, I need you to pause. I asked a question, and that was, how do you tell if it's actually revelation versus just something your mind's doing? And you replied by an assertion that the Bible is a revelation from God and that there's also direct revelation from God. You're not answering my question. If you think that something is a revelation, how do you tell if it's really a revelation? How do you know whether or not you're correct about it being a revelation?
Well, I know that it's revelation from the true God because the true God has a necessary prerequisites for intelligence.
Oh, you know that it's
I'm
true
sorry,
because
but
it's true?
that's a circular argument. I'm asking how one can tell if what they suspect is a revelation is truly a revelation from God or not. You don't get to just assert
Yes, exactly.
that you know and that it has to be because God is true. That is not a method. It is not a sound epistemology. If someone thinks that they've received a revelation from God, how can they tell whether or not they have?
It depends upon the God's properties. Okay. So, for example,
No,
Islam,
it doesn't.
Okay.
Wait, can I
Well,
clarify? I'm sorry to jump in. Can I just clarify that statement that you just said? You're saying that
Yeah, I mean,
you can tell. Hold on. Are you saying that you can tell the difference
railroading.
between what is real and what is not real based off of its properties? So after you'll learn about it.
Yeah, this is the problem with Robin's thinking and why I have to keep correcting this. You cannot say that it's dependent on the God's properties because there's no God available in question yet. The only thing you have is a thought that you suspect is a revelation. You cannot then appeal to some God's properties that isn't demonstrated because now you've got nothing but a circular argument. The question is, if you think that something is a revelation from a God, what methodology can one use to confirm that it is in fact a revelation from God?
Okay, so that's what I'm explaining to you. Okay, the revelation is going to depend upon multiple things. Okay, the Christian God, we know that he's real because of his properties. And
Robin,
and therefore
stop.
Reveals is true.
Robin,
properties.
Robin, I'm going to hang up on you if you don't actually answer the question. Because if you just assert that you know the Christian God is real and you know that the Christian God can reveal things to you, and therefore it must be the case, that is not a methodology. If someone, not you, anybody, thinks that they have been revealed information from a God, how do they tell the difference between an actual revelation from a God and just thinking? Because I would hope that you would agree, there are people on the planet throughout history who have suspected that they've had revealed information from a God who were wrong, correct?
Yeah.
So, and some of those people who were wrong also believed in the Christian God, correct?
Who were wrong about revelation?
Are there people who've been wrong about whether or not they got a revelation from God who believed in a Christian God?
Yes. But
Okay.
do you know the criteria for that?
Hang on, Robin, you answered the question. So now we live in a world where there are people who believe in a Christian God who have thought that they received a revelation, but were wrong. And I'm asking, how do you tell the difference between the ones that were wrong and the ones that weren't?
Or how do we know if you are wrong or not?
Because what they claim is inconsistent with the Bible.
Okay, now I'm done with you, Robin, because that argument is wholly circular. That argument assumes that the Bible is necessarily true and that only those revelations
you're just
that are
railroading
consistent
me.
with that, which also means that you have undermined not only the point you wanted to make, but additional points as well, because that means nothing can be revealed that isn't already in the Bible. And so, Robin, I appreciate your time, but we're moving on.
And to add on to that, I mean, that's actually a kind of a good point that we came to that, because I mean, I remember being told to believe that the Bible was real because it said that it was real. And so I can kind of understand why that's such a common thing. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
How do we help him? What can we say to him that might help?
So I'm not convinced that Robin's called Robin's called this other thing. Robin has a particular view about things and thinks that he has an argument that there is a necessary mind, and that mind is God. And then from there, he gets to the Christian God. And from there, he gets to, therefore, the Bible's true. And this is why he thinks that his revelation, this is just monumental arrogance and ignorance combined in a little puddle, because it's arrogant in thinking that you are getting revelations from God, and that your proof of that is that your revelations aren't consistent with the Bible. But if you're pointing to the Bible to claim that the Bible is a revelation from God, which Robin did, now you have a wholly circular, like a 2-layer circular argument. You have to show that the Bible is in fact a revelation from God. You cannot just assert it. But also it means that anybody who gets a revelation that isn't consistent with the Bible must necessarily be wrong, which means the only people who can be right under Robin's model are getting revelations that are consistent with the Bible, which means the revelation's superfluous. Why would I need someone to reveal something that's already in the Bible that I already think is revelation? It is absolute absurdity all the way down. It is stockpiled layers upon layers upon layers of arrogant assertions and assumptions. But
and I used to take that exact arrogant position because I was told that I was lucky that I was born in the right religion over and over and over. And so I believed, oh, well, I mean, I do have like direct access to God. I mean, I'm just that special. But something that I noticed about the way that he was presenting his thoughts, that I used to do the same thing, was when we asked, how do you know? He wouldn't give a specific answer. He would just say revelations, or because of things that happened that are like this, instead of saying, well, because this happened and then this happened and then I found out that this was true because, so it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like saying, yeah, I know things. And I know that because I hear the things and I already knew them. So
yeah, this is the problem here, is that in having these conversations, we have to ask certain questions. And some of these questions are incredibly difficult, which is like, for example, Jenna, how do you know you're awake right now? I have no answer for that. I can tell you that I've experienced what I feel right now is similar to me being awake, as awake as I've ever been. And I do know how it feels to be asleep and dreaming. And there's a distinction between those two. But how could I couldn't even prove to myself that the reality I'm experiencing is the one true reality. I couldn't demonstrate that there is a one true reality. And so it is a bit of an assumption that Jenna and I are sharing a reality. And the best argument that I can give for this is that Jenna has said things that I couldn't have thought of. Jenna has asked questions that were either something I would have never thought to ask or looked at from a completely different angle. Now, is it possible that I'm like some version of schizophrenic and I've invented Jenna as another part of my mind to ask the questions that I would? How do you prove that? And so you can't ever get to that. And yet Robin and other theists are absolutely convinced that they have discovered the secret grounding that, or in their view, not so secret, the secret grounding for reality, that there's a God that undergirds reality, that is the mind that generates and sustains reality, is the mind that makes the logical absolutes, which aren't really logical absolutes, but that makes them true. And so his questions are basically like, do you think truth is just truth coincidentally? It is. Everything about that ultimately gets to circular. Robin is convinced that there's necessarily a God. I'm not. Robin is convinced that this God necessarily, this necessary God is the Christian God and revealed the Bible. I'm not. How do you demonstrate this is true? Well, this gets back to, are you a global atheist or a local atheist? This is an attempt to deflect from having to defend his actual proposition and exposing that it's circular, into trying to suggest, as he did on Talk Heathen and elsewhere, that we as atheists don't have any foundation to object to or to argue about reality or anything. It doesn't get us anywhere. It is wholly circular. And that one was, Robin has had some difficult questions in the past. Like, how do you prove that the reality you experience is real? I don't know how to do that. I don't think anybody does. But this one was really easy and like straight.
I would hope that if he calls back, or if he's still listening or listens back to this, my personal request is, if you call back and I'm on, please try to prove to us why we should believe that the Bible is true. Yeah. Because I think if we started there, we would save a lot of time.
And I don't know if anything from that conversation or which of the following conversations that we're going to have for the rest of the show is likely to make it into a highlight clip. But if you missed last week's episode or any of the shows in the ACA, here's what you missed.
They were like, oh, like anyone can really go that long without sex. And I'm like, y'all are not going to die for not having sex.
We're holding an event in a hotel that is rumored to be haunted. Somebody reported that a ghost crawled into bed with her and had sex with her. I don't want that to happen. And not that I think it's likely, but it just makes me I feel a little uneasy.
If you're not getting yourself vaccinated, you can have issues with your reproductive cycle. So, ladies, gentlemen, take care of your baby ovens. Take care of your wee-wees, folks. Get the shot.
You know, get involved, get on that list, get read out. Maybe if you have a funny name, you'll become the honorable mention.
Unless it's like mayonnaise 55, then don't do it.
Yeah, you call.
Let's not curse each other out. That's unnecessary.
How about you stop telling me what language I can use on my show, and you learn how to have a conversation where you acknowledge point and stop trying to dodge. Gosh, it almost makes it look like I say fuck a lot, but
those make me so happy.
It's one of, I'm not gonna be wrong. I've been doing this show for a lot of years, and I love taking the calls. I even love calls from Robin and people like Robin, because it does stuff to teach people things. But yeah, the highlight clip thing is quickly becoming like, I liked it better when I was the highlight. So I just want to say, Shannon Q, we miss you, and vagina. But I have a call, and yeah, I think Jenna might have some new insights here. DJ in Colorado, thank you so much for waiting. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Jenna.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, big fan of you guys, especially you, Matt. You really changed my life, especially back when I was deployed. I had a little theistic struggle and everything, but the Atheist Experience, Non-Stamp Collector, and Dark Matter, and all you guys, thank you so much for opening my eyes. Anyway,
thank you.
So I have an issue that may possibly come up, and I've changed my name and my daughter's name just for, I doubt that my parents listen, but, whatever. So I have a little girl. She's almost 4. Name is Jaslyn. My parents are Catholic and Christian. They're not like fundamentalist or whatever the extremist, whatever the word is, where they're they didn't disown me one night when I told them that I didn't really believe anymore and all that jazz and stuff like that. They just was like, oh, okay, and kind of just stop mentioning that type of stuff around me, whatever. But they have said certain things from time to time, not in a cruel way or anything. Just I guess that's just their way of what's the word? Coping with it, or just maybe they think it's a phase or something. But it's been about 10 years, and so far, whatever. You know what I mean? So they love my little one, and I love them. They have been asking me not too much when are you gonna get baptized. When is she going to get baptized and blah, 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 all this stuff. Whenever and I have this deployment coming up too. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, they're going to be spending a lot of time around her. I know that they're probably going to take her to church and all that stuff, which I guess I really don't care too much about. But like, that's not the way I really want to raise my children. So I was wondering, what do you guys think about that?
I've been doing a lot of research into parenting, secular parenting specifically, ever since I became an atheist a couple years ago. And I just had a baby a couple months ago, so I'm just now having to
Congratulations.
live it. Thank you. And so basically, my mom came and stayed with me when I first had him, and she wanted to go to church, and I had to go with her. And I had the option of leaving my baby with my partner at home or just taking my mom. I took him with me. And the thing is, I think that exposure is one of the best things that can help a forming brain. Especially if you expose them to that religion. You know what? I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to tell you what I do. I'm exposing him to the religions in my family. My parents, my family is religious as well. But I'm also going to expose him to other religions and other ideas. And that way he will grow up kind of seeing these two and being like, kind of like the last caller we asked, how do you tell the difference between these two gods? One's real, one's not. How do you tell the difference? He'll eventually come to that same position. How do you tell? And so hopefully he can, much younger than I was, develop those critical thinking skills of how to tell when something is true or not. And I think that if those are developed at a young age, and this is based off of what I've seen, what I've researched, it's pretty hard for him to be that. I don't want to say the word gullible, but manipulative. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I hate to say that, but
yeah.
So does that help?
I guess because, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like one of those. I used to be like one of those people who love to like debate and some of that religion, and from time to time, I guess I will from now. But like, I'm not really that like big on it, whatever. I don't go to church. I don't do any of that stuff or whatever like that. And I know at some point, you know, she's going to be like, you know, how come my friends go to church on Sundays and we don't, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like,
tell them.
Because I don't really believe in it. Well, yeah, I mean, is that, I don't know if that's too, like, I want her to be able to come with her own decisions about what she wants, or what she wants, or not wants to believe, but what she believes and what she accepts and whatnot. But I also don't want to be, you know, hey, listen, you know, you have to think exactly like I do. You know, I'm sure she's probably smarter than me.
But you didn't say that. You didn't say that, though. You didn't say you have to think the way that I do. You just told them, you answered their question. Right. What do you believe? And I think that's legitimate. You're allowed to tell them what you believe. And if they decide, if that rings a bell with them, then they'll take it. And if it doesn't, that's okay.
Yeah, there's a concern that some people have that, you know, if I'm the parent, if I'm the uncle, if I'm in a position of, you know, authority, perceived authority over them, and I say, here's what I believe, that this will have some undue influence over them. And that's certainly a legitimate thing to be concerned about. But you can easily do it in a way where you say, hey, I believe this, other people believe that. You're going to have to decide what you believe. For example, I don't have any kids, but my niece and nephew, when I was talking to my brother about them, I said, I don't want to lie. I won't say I never lie, because everybody's going to lie about something. But generally speaking, it would take a lot to get me to lie. Certainly, I don't want to lie to my niece and nephew. And so if they come to me and they're like, hey, you know, why doesn't Uncle Matt go to church? Or what do you believe? I'm going to tell them what I believe. And I told my brother this. I'm always going to be honest with them. The other thing, I don't engage that much in baby talk. Okay, with a proper baby. But as soon as I think that anybody can remotely understand, I talk to kids as if they're people. whether they are or not.
Yeah.
And my niece and nephew both completely know Uncle Matt's an atheist. And if they had it, they also know that if they had any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And not once have I spent a single second trying to push my beliefs onto them or criticizing their beliefs or even asked them what they believe about it. Because in the same reason I don't make outgoing calls here. If somebody wants to talk to me about their beliefs, they call in or they send me a message and say, let's talk about it. I don't run around, you should stop believing. Oh, you better tell me what you believe right now. Do you believe in Jesus? Because I can fix that. I don't, that's silly.
Yeah, there's
a
difference.
There's much to worry about in telling people, including kids, what you believe. I tend to value teaching them how to think and showing them that you're willing to be honest and that you are open to saying, I believe this, other people believe that. It's going to be up to you.
There's a difference between telling them what you believe and telling them what we believe. Because I was told, we believe in this, we believe in that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I should too. Right? If you just tell them what you believe, I think that is a huge difference.
Okay.
If you specify.
Well, and that's extremely helpful. Thank you. I also just have one small question. What would you guys do in that situation? So, like, say, I obviously want my children to have a great relationship with my parents and stuff like that, but I know that they're going to be on the, they need to be baptized or something like that, and they're probably going to, I can just bet that they'll just, and it comes from a place of love. I understand this is what they believe, but they're just going to, take my children and go off and baptize them when they spend the night over or something like that. You know what I mean? And how would you talk to your parents about that in that hypothetical scenario?
Would it be okay with your parents? Would it be okay with your parents if another family member took one of their kids to a satanic ceremony and splattered them with blood?
Probably not.
Yeah. And so would your parents want people interfering with how they parent their child?
I would, probably not. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can say that. However, I will say, I was baptized voluntarily after accepting Jesus into my heart and after walking down an aisle. Plenty of other, religions sprinkle babies as soon as they possibly can, declaring them for the church. It does absolutely nothing to or for the baby. This is pomp and circumstance and sophistry for the parents and the grandparents to make them feel like, ooh, we've done it. We've made sure we've added another, Catholic child, etc. I wouldn't panic just because your people around you are going to try to teach your kid things and probably going to try and do stuff. If they try and baptize or whatever, it's not the end of the world. And if you have a relationship with your kid where they can talk to you about this, you'll know when it happens. And then you go to them, the people who did it, and you're like, how would you like it if I tried to undermine your parenting?
I think that that's a really good way to put it into perspective for them, to kind of give them the less of a desire to do that. But I just think if I was in that situation, he's 3 months old, that's about the age in the Catholic religion that you should have already been baptized. Like I was baptized at a month old. The thing is, it's not that I'm worried that the baptism itself will hurt my kid in any way. It's the fact that I'm leaving my kid with somebody who knows that I wholeheartedly disagree with something, and they went behind my back to do what they thought was right because that overrides my thoughts and my parenting style. That's not something I'm okay with, because that's probably not the last time they'll do something like that, and I don't know what's next.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a little, because I remember the day I told my parents, a long time ago that I just didn't really buy into all this stuff. I didn't really have a good reason to believe what they've taught me to believe and whatnot. And I'm not saying that they were being like mean or anything, but they just said, well, good thing you're baptized, so you're fine and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I guess. And I was just like, and truth be told, like you said, Matt, I wouldn't really. It's just water. Some old guy sprinkling water on my kid. Like, that's a little weird, but all right, give me my child back.
Yeah, I'm
but
far
like,
more
like
I'm
you
far
said,
more
they're not-
concerned about the fact that Jenna pointed out that they are willing to undermine you
Yeah.
and go behind and do what you don't want. And also, I'm far more concerned about what happens when they start teaching them ideas. If you want to sprinkle something
Yeah.
on my kid's head, I don't want you to, but I'd much rather you sprinkle things on my kid's head than sprinkle things in my kid's head.
And are you sprinkling things that are about how they shouldn't trust me? Are they saying things about how I'm an atheist and that's why
Right.
they shouldn't trust me?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
You know, yeah, if they're going to be that dishonest, then you don't know what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
does that help?
Well, no, that does help, and I appreciate you guys talking to me. I do feel a little bit better. I'll make sure I talk with my parents, about this, about how I feel and how, like you said, how they would feel if the situation was reversed in a different religion or something like that. So
well, ultimately, you are the parent.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, it's up to your kid, but
right. But I just don't want that to be a point of contention with my parents. Because growing up, my whole family's religious, but still, I loved spending time with my grandparents. I loved spending time with my parents and all that stuff. And they are the whole family. My whole family's great. You know what I mean? But it's just that aspect of it is concerning to me.
I was gonna
that they would probably go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to end the call because we've got other callers and everything, but you just said something that I want to give you a little bit of information about, and that's how much time you love spending with your grandparents. Here's the dirty little secret. Your kids' grandparents want to spend time with them, and you are responsible. You are the one who gets to decide whether or not that happens. You don't want to deny your kid the opportunity to spend time with your grandparents, and I understand that. But you should also remember that you can deny the grandparents time spent with their grandkids. You have the one thing they want more than anything, and it's not a problem for you to say, I would love for you to spend as much time with your grandchild as you would love as you want to spend, but you are not going to do A, B, C, or D. And if that's not acceptable, then you just don't get to spend time with them. It should hopefully never come to that. But you have all the power and all the leverage here.
And I would also just mention being careful, because something that I've learned in this journey of learning about parenting is that the more that you remove something from a kid, the more that you say that this is bad, you shouldn't do this, the more curious they become about it. And so if you present, some kind of, sans relationship with their grandparents, if you present it as we don't talk to them or something like that, then that just kind of, I wonder why. So I would just express exactly, if you can have that conversation with them, tell them, I really don't want this to end. I really want this relationship to stay intact. And again, with your kids, if that has to be a separate thing, then tell them honestly why you don't want them, which is that you don't trust them. And if something changes, if they can give you a reason to trust them, then it's possible to change.
On that note, DJ, I hope that helped. There's a lot to think about. Call us back. Let us know how it goes, what you decided. And, if you run into any problems or what you worked, if you found a better way that might help other parents.
Thanks,
right.
DJ.
Okay. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Not to say I'm some kind of model parent or anything. It's just that I've been kind of looking into this like researched based stuff. It's kind of new. It's fun. It's awesome.
All right. We've got a few more calls to try and get to today. This one, I think, may be relatively quick and easy. And there's a chance that we're having problems with call-in studio because I put somebody on the air and it did not go to the air. So that is wild.
You want to chat some
try
more?
again. Nope. It appears that there's a call-in studio glitch.
Oh no.
And there we go. Nikki is calling from California. I think, can you hear us, Nikki?
Nikki.
Oh, I hope so. It says she's on the air. All right.
Well,
I'm gonna leave it there. Nikki, if you're hearing this, we're not hearing you, and I'm gonna leave you as if you're on the air, and somebody will try to fix it. There were questions that came in that I think probably are somewhat worthy of addressing while they're trying to fix the call-in screening thing.
Hi,
I
Nikki.
think I heard Nikki.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, so we're so glad that they've got that fixed. Nikki, before we get to your call, I just want to make sure you have a really interesting claim. I'm going to have loads of questions. I think Jenna is going to have some questions. And because of the nature of this, where there's a delay, we're going to need to interrupt. So
Okay.
I will be as patient as I absolutely can, because if what you're saying is true, I got to know. So it says here that you've received signs from beyond the grave. And I'm desperate to know
Yes.
what those are and how you know.
Okay. Sure.
It's all you. You're live.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, basically. So, my friend told me to watch this show. I've heard of atheism. So just giving like a broad overview of my views. So I don't know really what I believe. I was Christian and became a Mormon when I was 12. I'm definitely not a Mormon anymore. And I don't go to church or anything. So, in regards to my views, that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, so I was just curious, since you're talking about revelations, and for me, I don't know if supernatural kind of things beyond the grave would be considered like a revelation, or if it would be tied to God. I was curious on your guys' point of what these supernatural instances mean, and if you guys have any kind of, but basically, so since I was little, I've always had a strong tie to, I've had a lot of death in my life. So when I was 12, my grandpa passed away from lung cancer, and the first,
Sorry,
prior to his death, I told him over and over, please just let me know that you're okay. Let me know that you're okay, because he was suffering, and I wanted him to pass on so that he wasn't suffering anymore. But I wanted him to come back and tell me that he was okay. That once he was gone, he was safe. So I wanted a sign, and I made that clear to him before he passed away.
Can I ask you a question about that sign?
Sure, of course.
Did you specify what it was that he was going to do?
I did not. No. There are certain signs that I have gotten. With my grandpa, I never really asked him straight out for a sign. When my boyfriend passed away in high school, I can get to those instances as well. I did reach out and say, please give me a sign. And literally in a split of a second, if not in relative close time, I did get a sign from him.
A specific sign that you had worked out before?
Yeah, I think what we're going to need, Nikki, is without going through all the stories and everything else, if you could give an example of a specific sign and tell me how you know that it came from somewhere beyond the grave.
Yeah, as I was talking to the screener, one of the ones that just always freaks me out, but is also really cool.
I hate to interrupt, but do you mind picking the best one, like the one that might convince us of this?
Yeah, I mean, two are neck, and I'll just go with this one because I really don't know how to explain it.
Okay.
The other one could have been technology malfunction. But anyway, so he passed away around Thanksgiving. I was obviously very upset around that time. It was coming up on the year anniversary. I was out with my friends, and we were on this road, which was very similar to the road that he passed away on. And I was there was a song that was playing, and I was crying, and I was just sitting there thinking, and I was just in my head,
are you okay? Trying to talk to him, and just thinking about him and like being upset and missing him. And then I looked down at my phone, and on top of this being really weird, there's also no service because we were in like a canyon. So you don't really get notifications, but I got a notification, and it said that he liked my photo, and it was on my home screen. He's dead. No one runs his Instagram. You know, there's no way that he or anyone else could be liking my stuff. So I saw that and I was like, what? And so I went, you know, once I had service, I went in, I looked through all of my notifications, all of my pictures, and it was gone. It was completely gone. So it just showed up on my home screen when I was thinking about him and sad and crying, and then it disappeared. So that's one of, you know, that day I don't think I necessarily asked for a sign, but I think he knew that I like needed to.
Well, the reason that the reason that I ask if you worked out something before is because if you just say, you know, the general word sign, give me a sign, something that will reassure me. In that moment, you are desperate to be reassured. And so you will look to justify anything in that moment to make you feel better. And it's okay to feel better. The thing is that unless it's something that you worked out prior, say on this, you know, I know you're passing, and if you can give me a sign like 2 weeks after that day, you surprise me with you know, writing on a fogged mirror in the morning before I go to, you know, work or something specific that you've worked out before that would actually verify to me that it's actually worked. But kind of justifying it afterward and being like, oh, that sounds right, that doesn't mean that it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I mean, his death was very sudden. It was like a tragedy, so it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like.
So I realize that there may have been an inability to do that, but that kind of proves my point.
Well, when I'm looking at this, so he dies a year later. You're on a road similar to the road that he died on. I don't know what that means because plenty of roads are similar, but you're in a canyon where there's no service. You're thinking about him, you're upset, and you get a notification that says he liked your photo. Do you have a screenshot of that notification? Is the record of that notification still exist in your phone? How do you know that?
I do, actually.
Okay. And so
I screenshotted it.
And so then when you get to where there's actual service, you go look and you say the notification is gone. How do you know the notification was ever there to begin with?
Well, because I screenshotted it on my homepage. Yeah.
So the screenshot, so the fact that you screenshotted a notification about something doesn't mean that that's what was actually there. But in any case, there's another, at best we can say, I don't have an explanation for this. I don't know. I have to take your word for every aspect of it because I haven't seen it and I don't have any way to investigate it. But the process of going through and figuring out whether or not this was a message from the other side. I just did a video the other day on Hume, one of Hume's axioms of reject the greater miracle. And so if somebody presents me with a miracle story, I have to ask, is it more miraculous that it would be true than that somebody's mistaken, somebody's lying, etc.? And so I have no reason to believe that you actually heard from the other side. But the bigger issue is that I don't see how you have reason to believe that you heard from the other side, because we don't have any evidence that there is another side. We don't have any evidence that there is life after death. And if somebody could communicate from the other side, that seems to be something that we would be able to demonstrate. And it never seems to be anything useful. It's always somebody's feeling bad and they tell you that they're okay or that they liked a photo. It's funny that you dismissed the story you could have told as that one could have been a technical glitch. Why couldn't this story have been a technical glitch?
That got me too. I was going to actually ask if that was this story.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a technical glitch. I guess they both could.
Which do you think is more likely?
Makes sense.
Do you think it's more likely that it's a technical glitch or that it's a ghost?
In regards to that, it could have been a technical glitch. In regards to my,
you think that it was more likely, though?
I definitely.
I mean, we absolutely
Possibly.
know that technical glitches happen.
Yeah.
We have no evidence, no good evidence that people exist in any way after death. As a matter of fact, the very notion that we could exist after death is, I would argue, one of the most obviously flawed propositions that religions and other things have ever propped up, because everything that we can demonstrate that makes us us is a function of the brain, and that dies. So what else is there to carry on after we're dead? There's no evidence of a spirit or a soul, and there's no way to demonstrate that it could be, because like my preferences, my desires, my memories, all those things are brain functions, which can all be altered when we alter the physical brain. So what is it that exists, and why is it that it has to wait until you're in a canyon with no reception and then rely on something that doesn't exist?
And it's
a
really
notification
vague.
that isn't. It seems
Yeah.
strange to me when, for me, whether or not it's a technical glitch or a spirit, the Hume's axiom that I talked about doesn't say accept the lesser miracle. It says reject the greater miracle. It doesn't say, oh, if you're given a choice between a ghost and a technical glitch, and a technical glitch seems less miraculous, you should accept that lesser miracle. No, it just says you should reject the greater miracle. So we should reject the proposition that it's a ghost and just say, I don't know what it was.
Because that's the fact, right? None of us knows
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the reason that I see it as it would be something beyond the grave, a sign, is obviously that was, there was technology involved. But like I said, with my grandpa, I don't know if I said that, but there was no technology involved. And also I know for me, I believe that there is some sort of after, like, spirits. That's just kind of how because I've experienced these things. And so, like if I go somewhere, I get this, overwhelming feeling, and I'll be like, sometimes I'll see orbs and stuff like that. And I'll say, oh, has someone died here? Or, I can feel their presence. And so that, along with like my grandpa, gives me hope that, say, those were actually signs rather than, a technical issue. But it's hard. I mean, yeah, there's no cold hard facts. So I guess it's more so, I feel like for me, it's probably just a sense of hope and peace of mind, to think that it was him and that he's okay, So that could be it. It definitely. Go ahead.
So someone just sent me a link to an article. I don't suppose that you got this text message around November 7th of 2019.
I don't. He died November 20th, 2017, around like 10 p.m. I think. I don't think it was that day. I think
In
it
any
was
case, somebody sent me an example of this about a whole bunch of people got Valentine's Day messages on November 17th or November 7th, 2019, because a server was rebooted that day and sent stuff out. And so that type of stuff happens. I mean, here's an example. The server failed and was reactivated 9 months later and started sending out Valentine's messages and caused some problems. It's entirely possible that some server related to Instagram posts got rebooted. And while you think you had no service, like my girlfriend and I went hiking and we were out where there wasn't any service. And yet every now and then there would be like just a little pocket of service where I would get an update, a Facebook notification, even though by the time I saw it and went there, I was back at no service, because service is a little intermittent. And so that message, timestamps can get confused, servers can reboot. There's countless explanations, and I don't know which one's the right one. For all I know, you got a message from your deceased boyfriend, but I don't see any by the way, thanks Tesla. I don't see any evidence that would be sufficient for anyone, me, you, or anyone else, to say, yes, the best explanation is that I got messages from beyond the grave, when we know frequently about tech issues.
Also,
yeah.
Nikki, but just real quick, I and you don't even necessarily have to answer these right now. I just want to ask you two questions. One, did you already believe in some kind of supernatural afterlife before these events happened? And then the other question is how much you know about how technology works. Would you like to answer either of those?
Sure. Yeah. So I definitely, when I was younger, the last caller was talking about, religion, and I was exposed to religion, but nothing about supernatural ghosts or anything. I was 12 when I saw, right when we got the phone call that my grandpa passed away, I saw his ghost laying in my mom's spot, and I thought that, it was him in his perfect form, like letting me know, okay, I'm going up now. So that I just told my mom what happened, and she's like, what? And then more experiences like that. I never really was exposed to it or believed in it, but when I started seeing my grandpa's perfect figure all around me and all these things, it was kind of then brought in to my life. But I didn't have any kind of prior.
So you didn't already believe it, but did you want to?
I don't think I ever really had the need to think that way, because I hadn't had anyone really close to me pass away. I hadn't gone through an experience like that.
But then you did, and then you changed your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, as soon as the call came in, that's the first time I saw his perfect form. Because when I was little, I would see things. Now it's more or less different, like signs and whatever. But when I was little, I could physically see things with my eyes. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't. I wanted to know that he was okay, but I don't know. But yeah, no, I wasn't, I don't think I was wanting to,
well, you said over and over and over again that you wanted to know that he was okay. Not if he was okay, but that he was okay. And it sounds like this is the best explanation that you can have to justify it in your own head. But I'm curious why the fact that he's not here and he's not in pain anymore, I wonder if that helps at all, if that would be some kind of comforting possible reality.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think just the fear of a 12-year-old not knowing where grandpa's going and he'll be okay. The peace of mind, yes, we know he's not in pain. Yes, we know he's not suffering anymore, but where is he? What's happened to him now after death, So I think, at least in my young age, that was probably comforting to see. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second question? I'm kind of forgetful, but
it's okay. This is a really deep topic. My other question was how familiar you are with technology. Like, do you consider yourself like a tech guru?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh, cool. Okay. That's interesting.
I've always been very, very savvy with technology, know how to code and do lots of things. I get it from my dad. He creates his own VR games, and he's insane with technology. So I grew up around a lot of technology, so very, very savvy with it.
Well, Nikki, I want to thank you for the call and for the information. I mean, obviously, I'm not convinced there's an afterlife. I haven't seen any good evidence for it. I think one of the things to perhaps think about is you've had a number of situations that seem to be consistent with the possibility of somebody speaking from beyond the grave. But one of the questions or a couple of questions to ask and work on is, how would we go about testing whether or not anybody's actually getting messages from the grave? Where are the people who show up and say, hey, here's where I hid the will. Hey, here's some useful bit of information. Or maybe the message of, oh, no, I'm not fine. I'm burning in a hell, and this is the real God. And you should pay attention to this one as opposed to the other one. But the notion that there's something about us that survives our death and can exist outside of our body is something that not only is there no good scientific evidence for, there's mountains of scientific evidence against. What we know about the brain and personality and how we can, reset things physically. I'm not in any way, I can't prove that you didn't get messages from beyond any more than you could prove that you did. It just seems curious to me that these things almost always seem to be more about an individual who is either predisposed to believing or is seeking some comfort, etc. And I don't see anything from skeptics who are scientifically minded, who are investigating, going, yep, I definitely got a message from the other side. And even you, to be fair, you're not saying definitely. This is just, these are, you were honest and open to different possibilities. And so I thank you for that. And then I guess it's just a matter of keep asking questions, and let's hope that if any of these things are true, in the sense that there's something after life, that we all get better evidence for it. Because right now, I mean, it's like less believable to me than Bigfoot stories, and I can't believe Bigfoot stories.
Can I ask you one final question, Nikki?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think that your experiences should convince us that there is an afterlife?
I feel like every experience with every being is situational. I feel like everyone has their own beliefs, and that's okay. So I don't think that, what happened to me was very personal, and what I believe isn't going to convince anyone else otherwise. So I think that,
Okay, then I have one more question. Why you would believe something that wouldn't convince anyone else?
I think maybe, like you were saying, it gives people kind of I'm blanking on the word, satisfaction or reassurance. Maybe that's why it's something that, like I said, it was, especially with the boyfriend, it was a tragedy. So having that was kind of like a reassurance. So it could be something just in my own head. No, it definitely happened, but, it could have been a technical issue that I just snowballed into thinking, it was a message from the afterlife. But like you said, there's evidence against and there's evidence that may be for, but it's very situational and it's very hard to prove. So,
and I will say that I absolutely have things that I believe that I can't prove to anybody else. But I wouldn't expect them to believe, because they're direct things that I've experienced, that I know what the real story is, and somebody else doesn't. But I do object to this notion that everybody has their own beliefs and that's okay, because that seems to almost be on the order of denying that there's a right answer or a truth, because people have lots of beliefs that are clearly not true, and I would say that's not a good thing. And some people have beliefs that are harmful. But in case, Nikki, I gotta let you go because we're past time to end the show. I appreciate your call, and if you come up with more cases or stronger evidence or whatever, feel free to give us a call back.
Thanks, Nikki.
Well, on that note, go ahead, Jenna.
Well, I was just going to say that something that I learned after I deconverted that would have helped me in her situation is realizing and kind of singling out the fact that reality hurts.
Yeah.
Reality is not satisfying, and it's not reassuring, and there's ups and downs. And so emotions don't necessarily tell you what reality is. They tell you how you feel about it. And so I would just, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's great. I think it's an important point that Emotions don't tell you about reality other than what you feel about it. And that's the same thing of don't be too enamored with a conclusion because you reached it. And there's a concept that I'm working towards for a video, which I'll sum up really quickly here. I talked about it a little bit the other night, and that is there's a couple different ways that I can learn something. I can learn what not to do by observing someone make a terrible mistake. And I can benefit from that because I don't have to make that same mistake. If I see someone cross the street without looking both ways and they get hit by a car, just seeing that negative lesson will teach me what to do or what not to do there. And the tendency there is to look upon that individual that taught me that, we'll say, negative lessons for the purpose of this. Look upon that individual who taught me the negative lessons as if they are somehow inferior to me or not as smart as me or whatever. I could also learn positive lessons where someone has some understanding of a subject and they teach me that subject. They teach me some piece of information. And because I've learned some piece of information from another human being that knew something I didn't, the tendency is to put that person kind of above you. This is someone who can teach me. This is a teacher. This method is how we get to teachers and priests and this top-down sort of thinking where we should rely on the people who know more than us. But the tendency there becomes these people are smarter, these people are not as smart. And when we're so in love with the fact that we were smart enough to avoid that negative consequence, and we were smart enough to know to learn from the people who were smarter than us, that all of a sudden we look at what we learn and we think we're less likely to be wrong, just like we look at the person, who taught us something and they're less likely to be wrong. Bertrand Russell had a quote, which is, it's a good thing now and then to hang a question mark on things you've long taken for granted. Hume's axiom of the wise person proportions their confidence to the evidence. We should never be so invested and doggedly encouraging and I'm going to forget the right word here. We shouldn't be so enamored with a concept because we have it, because we share it. This belief, it's not right because of who we are. It's not right because, as Jenna pointed out, of how I feel about it. It's not right because of how that belief makes me feel. It's right only based on evidence and argument in favor of it. And even if someone has attempted to disprove all other options, and this seems to be the only one left, the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle fallacy, how do you know that that's actually the only one left? Now, going back to the caller earlier, Jenna and I are here because both of us used to believe in a God, but now we don't. But we could both still be here even if we never believed in God. There are lifelong atheists. There have been lifelong atheists on this show. And all we're asking is for people to call in and tell us what they believe and why, and to have a conversation about it, to present the evidence, not just what convinced you, but what you think should convince someone else. And so in Nikki's case, Nikki is kind of convinced, but Nikki was, to be fair, convinced before it started. If you're 12 and you're wanting a sign from someone, you're at least convinced to the possibility of it. But Nikki was honest in saying, hey, this doesn't necessarily prove this. There were other callers today who were far more in love with a concept just because they held it. And because if they were to find out they were wrong, that would completely destroy their understanding of the universe. I have a particular definition of belief and knowledge that I use. Belief is being convinced that a proposition is true or likely true. And knowledge, rather than merely being like justified true belief as it is in philosophy, which is problematic. Knowledge is an assertion that we have a belief to such a high degree of confidence that it would be worldview altering to discover it's wrong. This is the problem with the caller who cannot see any possibility that they could be wrong, even when they don't have a way to go through and show they have exhaustively researched all the possibilities and left the only one standing. Instead, the Bible must be true because it's a revelation from God, and revelation must be true because it's a revelation that's consistent with the Bible. Circular, 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 circular. That's a problem. I'm not trying to beat up any particular caller. We've all done it. Jenna and I were pointing out in this last call, and Jenna in particular, that there were beliefs that were appealing to us just because they made us feel good. The fears that we have about not knowing the answers, about being alone, about what comes after life, if anything, those are all exploited by religions, by pseudoscience, by woo peddlers. And the question to keep asking is, do I actually have good reason to believe this? Or am I buying into this for some other reason? Is it possible that I could be mistaken? And if so, what is the problem in saying, I believe this, but I might be wrong? Let's discuss it. If you get that, call us next week. Tell us what you believe and why. We can have a discussion about it. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you so much to Jenna. Thank you to the crew who make this show possible. And we're sorry that we ended up dropping up a couple of calls, but we managed to get through. We'll see you again next week. Please take care of yourself and stay safe.
Thank you.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.